Today we are joined by Munraj Hyare. He is the Pro Club's producer for FIFA 18. First of all, Munraj, I want to thank you today for taking the time to talk to us a little bit about FIFA 18 and Pro Club.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to be here. I myself am actually a massive Pro Clubs fan myself, so I'm always happy to talk to you about Pro Clubs with anybody that likes the most.
Perfect. Well, EA started last year to make some changes in Pro Clubs. Unfortunately, due to some circumstances that were beyond our control, we were unable to sit down and have a conversation about the changes that started happening last year. It looks like this year EA actually has built upon that foundation, and I would like to take some time with you to kind of go through the details of the new features that we are seeing in FIFA 18.
Absolutely, yeah.
So why don't
we just start going on? Yeah.
Sure. Why don't you tell us first? What was the idea? What was the intent in the initial wave of restructuring Pro Clubs in FIFA 17, and then how you're building upon that foundation, if you will, on FIFA 18?
Yeah, totally. So I'll kind of rewind back to 17 a bit. So one of the biggest things that we realized as we looked at Pro Clubs was there wasn't a huge amount of team identity in the mode, and that was one of the biggest things that we wanted to tackle. And so just to preface this, anytime we're developing in an online space, there's a lot of edge cases, a lot of difficulty challenges in making features there. And one of the major things that we realize is, well, right now users are using authentic club crests and team kits, essentially, like the Real Madrids and Sevillas. That doesn't really give you that identity. It's like, yeah, okay, you can support the club that you have, but what we really wanted to implement was a way for users to show off who they are, use their own colors, use any kind of kit templates from the variety of brands like Adidas and Nike, and to give users the ability to just have that bit of flair, to show off that flair, I should say. So, for instance, maybe you want a kit that has a specific color scheme, or your club has specific color schemes. So that was one of the major driving forces behind custom kit. And the other parts in regards to the Virtual Pro and player growth, we've had an accomplishment system for many years, which, while there wasn't nothing necessarily wrong with that, we noticed that it became a bit of a grind where, for instance, there was accomplishments that required you to complete X amount of passes or X amount of shots. And we noticed that that's just kind of a bit, it felt a bit arbitrary for users at times to needing to do those to reach the next threshold in their attributes. So what we wanted to approach with that there was to give the users a little more flexibility and custom control over how they want to create their player. And so this is kind of going from 17 to 18 here with this, is that 17 we had a skill tree. It wasn't as big, and it was really just to kind of give additional bonuses to your player. And in 18 we've expanded on that significantly, and the whole premise behind that has been to allow you as a user to decide how you want to spend the skill points and upgrade your player. So perhaps you have a player, or the way you play the game is all about pace, or the way you play the game is all about holding the ball up and passing it around and dribbling. So you can choose to spend those points into the categories, attribute categories that you feel are best. And it gives a new way and more custom control for users, or let them decide what they want to do rather than meeting the thresholds.
Perfect. Yeah. No, we did like the way you were going with the skill points trees, and the fact that you took that and built upon that on FIFA 18. It's actually something that we are looking for.
Yeah, I wanted to bring more of an RPG element into the game. So that coupled with play styles. So play styles, I think you can liken to how every shooter game has their different loadouts, like the assault class, the medic class, and whatnot. Mm-hmm. This is meant more for you, the users, to be able to quickly switch between positions that they've preset the Virtual Pros, or even to preset play style within positions. So just to give an example, so a bunch of us guys at work, we play pro clubs at home, and one of the biggest things that we realize is as every game, as we start playing, and maybe one of our friend has to drop, another friend joins us, is to kind of formulate our tactics and what kind of team setup we want. And the biggest thing we noticed there was you have to go all the way back to the main menu to change your pro, to change everything else, and then come back in. Just because there could be a case where maybe myself, I'm a striker because I love scoring goals, but maybe someone else had taken that striker position. Well, now I need to kind of change my setup to accommodate the team, whereas playstyles now can help in that respect, where you can create those separate positions. So for instance, you can create kind of the striker, the winger, and the attacking mid or something. So it gives you flexibility to transition between without needing to reset your whole pro up and change the whole build scheme. And then the other kind of version for this is maybe you just want to create three striker play styles, but maybe one's more about going between dribbling and skill moves, and the other one is more about being more of the playmaker, and the other one is just being a straight up target man, finisher, or what have you. So it just gives you more of the options without needing to have that struggle of re-editing the entire Virtual Pro.
Yeah, that actually does help a lot in streamlining, because every time we had to, from personal experience, switch somebody from position to position. Let's say they were playing out on the wing, now we needed to play in center, creator, midfielder, or whatever. We would spend there 5 minutes just waiting for that guy to change all the attributes to the player that they wanted to change to be able to meet what they wanted to do on the field. And half the time we're like, you know what, just change your position and get back in the field. We don't care what you do, you'll do it later. So that actually streamlines that process, and everyone's going to be happy that we don't have to spend 5 or 10 minutes waiting for the person to modify his pro in the lobby.
Yeah, and I hope it, especially for the competitive groups, it helps kind of set their strategies and tactics and say, okay, Juan, you have your set different types, and maybe you switch between it based on who you're going to play in your next match.
Correct. Great. Well, that's actually one thing that will save us a lot of time in sitting in the lobbies, because sometimes it seems that that's where we waste most of the time, just waiting for someone to be ready, modifying their pro.
Yeah, I have the same feeling as well.
All right. So with that said, we'll go into the first question that I have here. This is a bit of a controversial topic, because in FIFA 17, people were complaining quite a bit about the player builds, if you will, meaning the penalties or the bonuses that you get for your height-weight ratio. People seem were under the impression that basically if you set your player really tall and heavy, there wasn't enough physical attributes, or not physical, but actually technical attributes, penalties for setting your pro really big. So it was like a win-win situation to set your pro really big and really heavy in the game. Can you tell us how that's changed, if it's changed at all?
Yep, and it has changed. It is something that I realized well after the fact of just how users were playing the game, and what was more overpowered than the other. And so yes, that has changed, and height and weight do have attribute caps essentially. So for instance, let's take a striker. The tallest striker, I think it's 6'5" or 6'6", will not be as fast as the shortest height striker as well. There will be a clear difference in the base attributes that you grow with that. So that's been extended to all of the physical attributes. So there are upsides and downsides between picking the height and weight compared to what we had last year.
That's really good to hear. I'm sure the people in the community are going to be very happy, because that was one of the constant questions that they were asking about the people that were playing the beta, if they had noticed a difference in the player builds.
Yes, there will be a difference. There will be a difference, and also with the new expanded skill tree, this is kind of the strategy and tactics involved as well. Is the customization is now that you realize, okay, this is however height and weight I want to set my player. Now from there, you can decide with the skill points you've accumulated, where do you want to use those points? Do you want to, maybe you've picked the tallest and heaviest virtual pro you can possibly get, so then maybe you want to spend as much of your points into the pace stuff to kind of accommodate the lack of pace that you have there. It's all about a trade-off and kind of adjusting the best build setup, essentially. And that's kind of one of the biggest aims, is trying to see what are the ideal build setups that you as a user can create with your pro based on how you and your team play.
Perfect. Well, that actually does bring me to my next question very smoothly, which is, can you explain, like, in detail, like, for example, what's the cap of the maximum amount of skill points? Can you recycle them? All of these things, and how does the skill point tree work in FIFA 18?
Sure. So skill points was introduced last year to a much smaller scale as it is going to be this year. And so essentially how you earn skill points is you'll earn it over matches played. This is just, so I'll actually explain how growth overall works.
Sure.
A large portion of player growth is still via your match rating, and you'll get experience from that that will push you past each attribute threshold and gates. So there's still quote unquote standard player growth that that happens as you play matches and how well you play them. In addition to that, and that's kind of, so that part of the growth is really driven upon how your performance is. Another part of that, which is the skill points, is how many over the matches that you've played and how many matches you've played. So as you hit every kind of match threshold, so say you start out with I think it's 12 or so, or 15, and then you keep playing matches, so maybe at match 1 you'll get a few more, maybe at match 3 you get a few more, match 5, 7, 8, 10, 15, and so on. You'll keep getting skill points to spend, and the match types that you must play to earn those is Pro Clubs League and Pro Clubs Cups. Those are the only two ones, because those are the two competitive ways to play Pro Clubs.
So then on the skill points tree, so you mentioned that basically you earn over matches that you play meeting those thresholds. Is there a maximum cap of skill points that you could earn?
The amount of games to play, it stops at 100 games, and the total amount of skill points that you can earn is 115.
115. Okay, yeah, that's what the bet was on, but we weren't completely sure. Perfect.
Yeah.
Let's say you're not getting the benefit that you were under the impression you were going to get by activating something, and like last year you take that skill point and you could recycle it and use it somewhere else.
Oh, you can still recycle it.
Okay.
That's just the whole, mainly because in Pro Clubs, and this is slightly obviously different from the Journey, which also has a skill tree.
Right.
The Journey, you're locked to that one position, whereas in Pro Clubs, you can change your positions on the fly, so it doesn't quite make sense for you just to lock onto a single one. So we want to let you recycle. We want to let you build and then remove it all, and build again and remove it all, to find your ideal setup, essentially.
That actually, I think I forgot to ask. That brings me up to, you mentioned the different player builds that you could have, this preset different builds. So each preset build could have its own different settings on the skill points, or is the skill points global?
No, it's unique. So that those three setups, you can have different height and weight. You can have different skill setups and different positions.
Perfect. That's great clarification. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. So the next question, and this is, I think, probably the number one request that you hear from people that play pro clubs at any level, which is there going to be at some point the option to allow subs in during the game?
Yeah, we do get asked this quite a bit. We actually get asked this, so I can explain this a little further.
Sure.
Basically, to to have a sub in Pro Clubs is also meaning basically to watch Pro Clubs without actually being playable. So I know we do have the method if you get a card and you could watch the remainder of the game. This is actually a larger thing, kind of like it's a spectator mode type of feature to have.
Mm-hmm.
It is, I will say, it has been considered and discussed over time, but I can't really confirm or comment on where it fits on the roadmap, essentially, of how we want to develop and implement features. But I can assure yourself and the audience listening to us that these kinds of features, spectator mode, having subs within Pro Clubs and joining in, those things are discussed.
Perfect. I think that's what people wanted to hear. Yes, that it's in the radar, and hopefully we'll see it soon. Tell us about your personal preference. What's the thing that you like about Pro Clubs the most this year?
So my biggest, the thing that I like the most, so I can explain just now how I play with my friends. So basically, most of us coworkers, we play on the PS4 Pro Clubs, and a lot of the things that I like are things that I think enhance our experience. So the new lobby layout, the new UI for the lobby is a big thing. So myself as I captain our team and I instruct the guys what to do and where to go. Having that new lobby, which is a lot easier to use, is probably one of my more favorite things. And being able to choose the set piece takers, and also being able to kind of visualize all the guys that are there, and that's my number one. Great feature to have is just being able to the easy to use pre-match lobby to sort out where we want the players to be, what formations, et cetera, et cetera. And obviously that screen has always been the same ever since Pro Clubs was incepted. So FIFA 18 has a brand new layout. And then my second most favorite feature would have to be the play styles. I think that is going to be huge tactically and huge for your team strategy. Because for myself, I play striker for our team, and I would probably have my striker play style, and then I'd probably be creating an attacking mid and another striker play style just to accommodate that. So my attacking mid would probably be more of the playmaker. My other striker build out would probably be more of a target man whenever we need that help. I think that being able to change how my virtual pro is on the fly is huge, and I think I'll be using that all the time, changing things up. Maybe I'm having a few bad games and I want to change it to something else. Maybe that'll kickstart me into playing better for my team.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, actually, I do agree with the first feature of that will allow and simplify the captain's job, because I typically do captain my team, but I get the feeling that most of the time I get no respect from my teammates, because every time I ask them, oh, let so-and-so take the free kick, somebody else takes it anyway, and they don't care. So that's probably a personality problem with me, but I think that's going to be changed now. I'm going to have a little more control over what people do in the team.
And on the bright side, you can just pick yourself to be the set piece taker for them all.
That's what I'm trying
to
to
do that for free kicks.
I always miss them, so I'm getting a lot of hate, so I have somebody else take the heat for that.
Fair enough.
All right. So about the custom kits, you did mention early in the interview that you wanted to start giving people, you wanted to give them some sort of identity. So you introduced the first version of custom kits in FIFA 17. What do we have new on FIFA 18 in regards of custom kits and badges?
Yep. So to build on what we did for FIFA 17, we doubled the amount of colors that you could choose. And those aren't just randomly picked colors per se. They're actually colors that we took from iconic club kits. So, for instance, the purple is Fiorentina's purple. There's a light blue there that I believe is taken from one of Barcelona's kits. So we chose colors that are used by the actual teams, and we've increased the amount of colors. And also for badges, we've added more badges for users to choose from. Just the aim for 18 was to add more content and also to refresh a lot of the kits that we had. So one thing that users will notice is a lot of the kits from 17 have been replaced, mainly because they're probably a bit older, to a lot more current ones from this current year, and that you'll see from other teams, other actual teams wearing in real life.
One thing that did frustrate me a little bit, and I haven't had the chance to play around with this, is sometimes I would want to pick a primary color for my jersey, but a different primary color for my shorts. And that typically was locked down to the whole, at least the shorts and the jersey as a whole. Is that still the case, or could you now have independent colors from the shorts and the jersey?
It's still the same as last year, so you're still setting 3 colors. But what you're saying in regards to having more control, that is definitely something under discussion. I think the main thing to be mindful is when creating these is, one, we have to be well aware of kit clashing. So obviously kit clashing means if you have an all dark kit and you're against another team that has all dark but maybe slightly different color, we need to make sure that we're vigilant in ensuring that that obviously doesn't happen, so that you'll obviously see your kits, but you may get a different version for the other team, just to make sure it's a playable game. And this is something we use in seasons and all our all 9 modes essentially. But to have something more organic like that, we just need to be very mindful of that big part of yeah, you get to choose what you want, but we need to also be careful to ensure that it doesn't clash with the other teams, and we kind of adhere to a lot of the restrictions and logics that we have to prevent those kind of things from happening.
Yeah, actually, I think that was a little bit of a problem last year with kit clashing on custom kits, so I think that's improved this year. Now, on that subject of customization, people have been asking quite a bit for the ability to be able to have their own badge editor, where you could actually use your creativity and be able to create some graphics for your team's badge. What are your thoughts on the ability to having people possibly doing this?
I think that would be awesome. As a gamer myself, I think that'd be really cool to do. I think as a developer, we need to be very smart on how we go about it, mainly because after all, we are an E-rated game. So anytime you add something that's customizable for users and free to do, what is the one thing that people will try to do is basically to try to do a dick, essentially, or something along those lines, something that's not really safe for work, obviously. So there's things that as developers we need to be very mindful of and be very adhering to, but I think it's something that we should and could be looking into for the future, on creating something that lets you have those free reins and the ability to choose how you want to do it. I just think it's something definitely for the future for consideration.
Now that esports is all the talk in competitive gaming across all platforms and pretty much across all games, or well, not games, most of the popular games. FIFA being in the popular position and having that huge amount of players that play everyday games, be Ultimate Team, be one-on-one, or be pro clubs. You personally, how do you see pro clubs playing a role in the future of competitive esports?
So I think for pro clubs, in a sense, personally, it's something that just matches. It's 11 versus 11 football. It's basically you controlling a single person. To me, that is a competitive game. That's a competitive team. That's 11 people playing against another 11 people and trying to beat them. I think there's huge promise. I think there's huge promise and huge potential there for pro clubs in esports. Personally, I think it's one of those kind of it should happen eventually because you're controlling a single player and you're in a team with 10 other people, so it's 11 versus 11 football. It makes the story, it makes so much sense. I think there's a lot of work that we need to do to get there, and I think a lot of work developmentally and just in organizational needs. I think that it's definitely something that should be discussed and I think has been thought of by a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
I can't really say where that's going. I think right now for FIFA, we're still in our infancy with esports. Like we just started last year with FUT Champions. I think we're still developing there, and I do see a future for this though.
Yeah, great. Let's see. One common request that we constantly get from our community, it's the ability to be able to buy or bypass some of the building process of your virtual pro, being able to buy FIFA points like you do in Ultimate Team, purchase packages for updates, or even the option to completely build your pro to 100%, utilizing consumable items that you buy using FIFA points. What's your thoughts on that? Do you think that there is something to be done in that regard?
Hopefully with yourself and your community, I'm very open to hearing feedback and hearing what you guys like versus what you don't versus what you want to see more of. Especially now we've just released FIFA 18. Obviously we're very early in that, but there's definitely discussion that we can have for 19, and we're open to hearing more about how yourself or how the community can see that can work, and we could take that from there. I would like to keep an open line with the Pro Clubs community, just kind of so we can develop a feature set that's something that we can all enjoy.
Yeah, no, that actually, it kind of, again, you very smoothly put me in my next topic, which is community feedback. So you just mentioned that you're very open and you like to hear what the community has to say, what the community feels about the game and their input. Unfortunately, because of all the things that people are unable to see that happen behind the scenes and internally with the development of the game, what can you tell to all those people that constantly provide or help provide feedback, and they feel as if it's falling in deaf ears because it's not implemented to some extent?
Yep. One thing, it's not on deaf ears. Any feedback that gets to me, I do look at, I do take seriously. I think it comes down to just the resources that we have and the availability that we have to be able to build these things, in addition to the priorities and what we need to get done for the greater good. Obviously, myself, I'm the online producer for all of FIFA. So while Pro Clubs is huge and it's probably it actually is my #1 favorite mode,
Mm-hmm.
there's also other items that we need to focus on as well. We do have lists of things we wanted to implement. So basically, I know the common theme that gets said a lot is EA doesn't care about Pro Clubs. I can say as the online producer that is not the case. There's a lot of people in this studio that love Pro Clubs and play it, myself included. I played hundreds of games of it last year. So every piece of feedback is taken seriously and is mashed up. I think a lot of the feedback that we implemented for 18 was from user feedbacks. I am constantly on forums. I am on looking at Reddit. I am name dropping all these places, but I do review it. I may not post, but I'm reading almost all the time and almost daily.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing for the game. And thanks again for stopping by and taking your time to kind of, let the community know what you're doing and what the outlook of the game is. And we're really excited for FIFA 18. As any new game that first comes out, there's always some initial bugs that actually, as I was starting the interview, I got confirmation on some issues that I'll be sending over to you. Again, I do want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us, and looking forward for FIFA 18 and the things that hold in the future for FIFA in general.
Thank you for having me. It's great to speak with a lot of the Pro Clubs community as well, and being able to hear their feedback. So again, I will say, you can have your community send your feedback to you, and you can send it directly to me. I will be looking at it, and we will be going forward. My aim is to create the best Pro Club experience, and then eventually, like we've talked about, is to get later down the road is something that can be played by more people. I want more people involved in Pro Clubs and playing it, so I'm always down to improve it and build upon it.
I'm sure that we will do the best that we can to give you all the feedback that we feel would improve our experience in Pro Clubs during FIFA 18.
Thank you.
Thanks again.